Hello and welcome to Pathways. I am your host, Amber Stitt. And today we welcome Annie Margarita Yang to the show today. Welcome, Annie.
Amber, thanks for having me on today.
So you are the owner, founder of Annie Yang Financial. You have a YouTube channel. You have 2 Amazon best-selling books. And so you have a lot going on behind your name. So I'm so excited to have you on the show. I know you're passionate about helping others find their way to financial freedom. And I wanted to talk about how you really started spearheading this. And I think you just see things differently. So where did this all come from? Was it something that you grew up with, or did you always just have that motivation, or did something happen early on?
No, it was definitely something happened. I didn't always have the motivation. I think, though, I gotta say, a lot of my motivation comes from people telling me that I'm wrong. And then I want to tell them I'm not wrong, and I just want to prove people wrong. A lot of that comes from that. So I grew up in a working class Chinese immigrant family, so we didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't want to take on student loan debt. My high school years were from 2009 to 2013. So right around that period, that's the Great Recession. And I was reading in the news about how college graduates were coming out and half of them were unemployed or underemployed and working jobs that didn't require their degree or weren't in their field of study. So when I was reading those kind of statistics, I was like, wait, why is my guidance counselor, why are my teachers, they're all pushing college when it doesn't line up with what I'm reading in the news?
Right.
So are my teachers right, or is the news right? I couldn't tell, but I was just like, if the news is right and they keep reporting on this, then maybe it doesn't make sense for me to go to college. So I had this guidance counselor though, because she saw that I had straight A's. I had like one of the best grades in the school, good enough to go to Harvard. And she was just telling me, you're going to be a failure for the rest of your life if you don't go to college. She just drilled that into me over and over and over again. And I just said, you know what? I want to prove this person wrong. So that's motivated me. All these years after I graduated, I worked minimum wage jobs, but even despite I didn't make a lot at the time, I was saving 25% of my income because I came across people online that were talking about how important it is to have a minimalist life and to be frugal and things like that. So I really embodied those values, and that's really what started my journey.
I told you a little bit early on that working with really helping clients with financial freedom, even just an emergency savings account, 3 to 6 months is what we try to say, depends on the philosophies. So you are above and beyond doing more on minimum wage is what you're saying.
Yes. So while making $10 an hour in New York City back in 2013 to 2015, I was saving 25% of my income, which was about $400 to $450 a month.
So what's the excuse out there that you see? I mean, what do you think outside of coffee? Don't spend money on Starbucks. Well, you should spend money if you deserve, there's a different philosophy there on that. But truly, what do you think your peers are wasting money on?
Well, yesterday down in the laundry room, I live in a condo building, so we have a shared laundry room. And one of the people that live in the building, he's actually a roommate. He doesn't own the condo. He's just the roommate of a condo owner. And I know for a fact that he has $10,000 in student loan debt that he hasn't even begun paying, even though he's 29, and he borrowed that 7 years ago. And me and his roommate, which is the owner, we've been like telling him, it's kind of smart to save your money for a future down payment of your own place, right? It's the smart thing to do. And he's like, yeah, but I have no money. Money is tight. But he just came back from Colombia. And I was just like, see, I never really travel unless I really have to. So I don't travel for leisure. I travel because an event is happening that I have to attend, right? So for practical matters. So I have no idea how much airfare costs. I always in my head, I just thought, it must be so expensive. But then he was like, oh yeah, the airfare was $400 round trip. Oh, and during my time there, I got this tattoo. He showed me like this gigantic tattoo he just got. And he's like, and it was only $700. And I paid for like a 3-day tour package. He didn't tell me the tour package price, but tour package price plus hotel plus food for 3 to 5 days. I'm assuming 300 is approximate for Colombia, right? So just like in that trip, that was $1,500. And this is a guy who tells me he doesn't have money. I think millennials, they tend to spend their money on experiences. They have this mindset, well, I'll never be financially free anyway, so I might as well just spend it on experiences that I can have for the rest of my life. I'll always have those memories.
Yeah, I feel like And I told you, I'm more in that middle grouping of that Gen X, kind of that tail end. But it's not just millennials. I mean, if we look at statistics when it comes to retirement planning, most people have fear that they don't have enough money on the other side too. So there's some behavior shift that's got to happen. And I know that you have one of your books that talks about 1,001 ways to save. Did you just start mapping out all these ideas and you published the book? But I mean, clearly there's some ideas out there. It's just whether or not people want to put it and implement and get it done, right?
Yeah, the information's there. How I got that information was from reading a whole bunch of blog articles back then on how to save money. Like I would read them. I would wake up every morning and I would read blog articles about money and how to save and be frugal and everything for 2 years straight, to the point where I just had them memorized. And then people would ask me like, I don't understand, how do you save money? And then I was just like, I don't understand how you can't. So I'm not sure where you're based. I'm actually originally from Brooklyn, New York. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and everyone thinks it's so expensive. But there was this time when I went to a gathering, like a gathering of 10 people. We went to someone's apartment for the gathering, and she lived alone, but she was like renting, I think, a 1 or 2 bedroom alone. And she asked me what I was doing. And I was like, oh, well, what I do is I help people save money. And then she asked me, how can I save money? I was like, is it rude for me to tell her to downsize?
Right.
No, I'm serious. Like, would it be rude for me to tell her, well, instead of renting a 1 or 2 bedroom, why don't you rent a studio for yourself? Don't have all this furniture. And also, she was commuting from Brooklyn into Staten Island as well. Yeah. So the commuting fee to get on that ferry and the bus and everything. So I was also going to say, well, why don't you move to Staten Island so that you're also closer to work? Also where the rent is cheaper. But she wanted to be in Bay Ridge, where there's all these cool restaurants nearby. Yeah. Right? And the rents are really high in Bay Ridge. So it's kind of like rude to do that in a real life interaction. So I figure, why don't I write this book for people and tell them to have this house?
It's for everyone, but here you go. No, personal signed copy for you. No, I mean, it is pretty wild. And so Arizona is where I'm based, but I'm kind of tucked north out of the Old Town Scottsdale area. And of course, to have a home that is 1 to 2 million, like California is right next door. And I mean, you can't get much for that. And then of course, depending on where you are in New York, but you can get some decent homes. I mean, give or take what period of time we're talking about. It's still pretty inflated here, but you can get a pretty decent sized home. And beyond that, why do we need that big of a size? Frankly, I don't want to clean that much. And I feel like coming from the Midwest, now living in Arizona, we don't have basements. As much as that's annoying for storage reasons, you actually can't store a lot of holiday stuff. So the tchotchkes, the knickknacks, the holiday stuff that we tend to mindlessly spend money on at times, I really can't. So having that ranch 1 story does definitely help me with my budget. And then you say there's not enough room for other things, but having that living space, being able to work out of the house as needed, and then living space, I mean, that's really all I need. And I'm happy with that. So, I mean, it's really looking at, could you go bigger? Sure. But,
but you choose not to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you know exactly what you need, right? It seems like you're really clear about your needs versus your wants. Like, I would like to live in a mansion, but I don't need to live in a mansion,
One of my friends, she went really big in her house, and she says, when I leave my room and I forgot something, it takes forever to get back there. And I'm like, well, I don't know what that's like. So no. But so let's see, going back, you talked about student loans way back to present day. Do you feel like everything is still the same conversation? There's still the debt. We're still not getting ahead.
It's only gotten worse. I've been following the news on student loans since like 2013 when I graduated. And actually, back then, the average debt that people graduated with was $26K. And I was like, wow, that's a lot. And now people are graduating on average 36 to 37K. Yeah. And then I'm like, wow, that's even worse. It's like, it hasn't gotten better. And then I was just like, well, I mean, they've been reporting on this news for now at least 13 years in my adulthood, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm just like, why does no one read this and think I should take this information and decide maybe it's not a good investment after all? Or maybe I should go to community college first, or, something cheaper, but not as brand name, but it still has the same value, which is you get the degree. So long as it's a regionally accredited institution, what's the difference, really?
Yeah. And I know that you have podcasted quite a bit, and I have found in the community of a lot of entrepreneurs that are very successful as we hear their stories. Not a lot of them. Well, I'll just say a lot of them did not finish college and they just got after it and got to work. And so there is, if we study very successful people and wealth, it's not always based upon academia, let's just say. So that's really interesting that you basically told people very young, I'm not going to listen to this, and you paved your way.
Well, I have a story to share. My mom, she doesn't have an education beyond 6th grade. She was a farmer in China, so they were very poor. And then my dad is the one that's well educated. He got the associate's and bachelor's degree in China in a time when everybody didn't have a degree, right? It was really hard to get into college. He was the only one who got into college in his whole town. So, people held him in really high esteem.
Yeah.
But after they both moved here to the United States, so he worked for the MTA. I don't know how much they make, $70K back then. He was fixing traffic lights. He got an associate's degree here in the United States. So now he has 3 degrees, right? Fixing traffic lights. And then my mom, with no degree, because she also didn't speak English, she had to hustle. So at first, she was working at the garment factory, making 25 cents a piece. And then one day my dad said something, I think I got this personality trait from her, said something to her about how she was spending so much money on groceries, nicer groceries.
Your dad?
Yeah, my dad said that to her, and she didn't like that. And she just decided from then on, she's like, I'm never asking my husband for money to buy groceries ever again. I'm going to go earn my own money, and I'm going to buy any groceries that I want.
Did she ever go on video with you?
No. I want to maintain her privacy.
Yeah.
But then from then on, she started like a Chinese takeout restaurant, a nail salon,
oh my gosh,
ice cream shop, like a whole bunch of businesses, one after another. Not all at the same time, one after another.
Yeah.
Until she finally stumbled upon a business that I can't really talk much about, but she sells a product for $5 door to door. And selling $5 at a time door to door, she makes $200,000 a year. So she makes more than my dad. Yeah.
No excuses, people. Seriously. And I know you do with the 5-day job search, you focus a lot about being competitive for yourself and really standing out. And so taking what you've seen, even with your mom, maybe you didn't know it's in your DNA, but really giving yourself that competitive edge, even globally now, is so important. And I'm sure you've studied about this, knowing how just in a small period of time, how much you do research. What are you finding is so important now for your own personal brand, even if you're not a business owner, but just to stand out in business, period?
Well, one of the important things is your headshot. These days, I think a lot of people don't put a lot of emphasis on that. They think, oh, my credentials are more important. But actually, I think what's changed is since everything is online these days, your brand is basically the first thing that people see is the picture of you. And yes, I used to say while it's not fair, some people are born prettier than others. And I'm not necessarily the most beautiful person in the world. But then I kind of just suck it up. And I was just like, you know what? It's true that before I open my mouth to speak, people are going to look at my face. So I might as well, spend some time grooming myself and putting in that time to learn how to do my makeup, how to dress better, and having a nice profile picture that looks very attractive that will make people want to talk to me online.
Yeah. And I checked that out too, by the way. So I do agree. You got some good shots on there.
Thank you.
But I do, the LinkedIn that's like the circle, gotta put something up there, something, please. You gotta
don't leave it blank.
And that's another thing too. When you look at, and I was talking about global competition. I mean, people are moving all over, digital nomads. I mean, you could be working anywhere, doing anything, but people want to have that trust with people that do have that appeal. So I think when we think personal brand, it's not like marketing like a big brand, like say a sports, logo, but really it's that trust factor that you can bring to the table. And I know that that's why, your YouTube's amazing. And you do have that polish and that clean edge with your photography and your video. So did you learn that along the way? Were you always just kind of good at putting that together?
No, I actually started off by recording in my bedroom. So I was one of those YouTubers that started by recording while on her bed because we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And the only area in the whole apartment where you had this natural sunlight coming in to make it look really nice was the bedroom. So people saw me recording on my bedroom. I had to make do with what I had, right? All I had. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have nice lights. Nice lights cost around $500 and I didn't have that money. So I just started off like that. And then slowly, as I made more money, I made investments into better microphones, lighting and all. But then actually my employee 2 months ago, she said, you're too polished. She said, you're too polished in your brand and people can't relate to you anymore. That's why people aren't watching. They can't relate to the old Annie when she wasn't making that much, when she was just so raw and authentic. And that's what people really liked. So I went back to just recording in my kitchen. So now I don't even edit the videos anymore. I just turn on the iPhone, I put it in the selfie mode and I hit the record in my kitchen and then I stop recording and I upload. I'm going for that really old style, very amateur feeling on purpose.
Well, you talk about consistency. So back to your team supporting you and saying, this is what the people want. Are you doing different modes for different platforms to be consistent there? Is it the same, just like selfie mode now moving forward on all platforms?
I'm actually only on YouTube and then starting next week going on more TikTok. But yes, I'm trying to go for that very amateur style on purpose. I will even do that on TikTok because I feel like if I'm too polished and it seems like I put way too much time into my makeup and lighting and everything, people are going to be like, well, of course she can land a job in 5 days. Look how amazing she is and I'll never be as amazing as her. Like they might feel that way and then that might be even more off-putting for them because they might be like, well, I'll never be like her. Look how amazing she is. She's put in all this money. I don't have that money. Right.
So it could be intimidating.
So I can't do what she's doing. Yeah.
Not relatable.
Yeah.
So let's stay there. There had to be some grassroots to build the outline of the book. So let's go back and talk about maybe that bootstrapping kind of that attitude that we know lives in that fire that you have, that I can tell you have. But let's talk about those elements that really anybody can have if they put the time in to have that outline for themselves to success.
Yeah. So one of the things people need to learn is the numbers matter, right? It's really everything you do in life is a numbers game. And that is the first principle to learn because a lot of people, they give up way too early. And in my book, I talk about the importance of applying to 50 jobs a day. And I talk about this on my YouTube channel as well. But this concept has actually gotten the most pushback. It's gotten the most resistance and people saying, well, this advice doesn't work. It's never going to work. You know, you need a tailored resume for each job you apply to. And how can you do 50 a day? So many excuses for not being able to do it. But the people who actually do apply to 50 a day, they find results really quick. They can land a job in 2 weeks. Like I literally had someone, he's an immigrant from El Salvador, came to the United States 7 years ago. He lives in California. And so his English is really poor. He was writing in my YouTube comments every day. And I literally thought he was maybe based in India. I had no idea he's here in California.
And he keeps commenting and writing?
He kept commenting. He's like, you give me motivation. I feel motivated after watching you. And then one day he said, I just landed a job in 2 weeks. Thank you for your advice.
Oh, love it.
So this is like literally a guy, not even from the United States. His English is really bad. And he got a job in 2 weeks. Come on. Come on.
You know, in sales, I'm in sales and some people think, oh, sales bad. We're all in a version of sales at some point, but the volume, the numbers. So I was wondering if you're talking more like monetary, like the travel, you're really going on travel and having expenses that are built around your business. But when you're talking about numbers in this context, you're talking about the volume. And I go through so many appointments with my clients and there's only so many I can help. And we have a healthy practice, but we see a lot of people. And so you're getting feedback from people that just say it doesn't work. But I mean, are they truly doing the work?
They're not doing the work.
Do the work.
They're not doing the work. Yeah. I was helping someone. I was privately coaching him for free. And I said, okay, we've done your LinkedIn. We've done your resume. You're ready to apply to 50 jobs a day. That's your homework. Get back to me next week with 300 jobs that you've applied to, right? And then he came back with only 45. The thing is, though, he came back to the session. He's like, I applied to 50 a day. I don't know why I'm not seeing results. And then I was like, oh yeah, prove it. I want to log into your account. I know. Let's log into your account, share your screen with me. And I want to go to the section where I can actually see which jobs you've applied to. And then, so we did that. And then lo and behold, he applied to 45 total. Not per day.
Did you fire him? Was he out? No.
I was so upset though. I went like full on Gordon Ramsay on him.
Don't tell me it's 50.
Yeah. And then I said, you better come back to me next week with 900 that you applied to. Otherwise, don't come back. And he came back the next week with 500. So I was like, it's okay. Right. But he ended up getting a job in a month, right? Like when he was unemployed for 6 months prior. So I was just like, the advice works if you're willing to put in the work, you know?
Okay. So you apply to all these jobs, then you actually have to talk to people in an interview. So I suppose if you have some social awareness, you can understand how you enter a room. There's always personality assessments that can help us understand who we are, but then who are we sitting across from? I know you talk about storytelling. That's helpful in the room. Is there any icebreakers for really any personality type to get in there and get over the nerves of the Zoom call, the phone call, the full interview?
Well, I'll be very honest. This is something I do. It's really funny. You might laugh. So before I get on the call or I start recording a video, I start going like, I do like vocal exercises like me to get my voice warmed up, right? I feel like if my voice isn't warmed up, I can't get in there with confidence. Another thing is I do this affirmation where I say, okay, I'm not worthy. I'm not capable. I'm not worth it. You know, like a whole bunch of things that are bad about me. And then I step forward. I do a one big step forward with my legs. So I'm standing up while doing it. I step forward. And then I say, you know, I can do it. I'm capable. I'm worthy. I got this. So it's like I go from not worth it to worth it, right? So
you jump into this is happening.
Into the future. Jump into the zone. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't completely laughing about the...
Do you do them?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I know that I've taken speaking courses and improv, and some of those actions kind of get you in the zone. I think some of the prep is kind of like if you like watching golf. I don't know who really likes watching golf, but golfers have kind of their system. I need space before I record, and I sit kind of quiet and I look over, notes, or there's certain things that I do talk and speak out loud just to get the voice ready. But the goofiness of the tonality and like working through your voice, it's so important. And Vin Zhang is a guy that is in Australia. I think he's still there, but comedian / teacher on other coaching. But he would talk about improv and how the voice is the most important thing.
Oh, okay. So it's not so embarrassing.
No. Well, Clearly you're successful. So incorporate that into the mix. Give it a shot. You can't not do that. So you get the game face on, or like we might do deep breathing or whatever. And then we go into the room. So any advice for those people that are trying to land the job, having that conversation with that future employer?
Yeah, it's really more about being yourself. That's the hardest thing, that people under pressure, where they feel like they're being watched, they feel like they cannot be themselves and that they want to please the employer. And we're trying to go for that authenticness. We're not trying to be fake. We're not trying to lie our way through the interview, because if you lie, they're going to find out later and then they're going to fire you, or they're going to be really disappointed in you, right?
Yeah.
So just remember, this is a two-way conversation. You do your research on the employer beforehand. You have your own questions about the job, because it's like dating. You want to make sure it's a good match between the two of you. It's not just the other person's like, I like you. Because I want to tell people, they're trying to impress you too, especially if it's a toxic company. Where it's so toxic, they have such a high turnover that everyone who works there only lasts for 6 to 7 months. They're trying to impress you too.
Oh, you just gave me a flashback. It was like, I really needed this job, and I get swooped into the top 10 home builder and go to lunch, and they pick me up, and it was so toxic. Oh, that is so funny. I mean, maybe.
Oh my gosh, there's someone in my office. There's someone in my office. I went on his LinkedIn last week, and then I saw a post. He was like, I just got hired by the company that I work for, and I'm so excited to start next week, blah, blah, blah. And now he's been here for a month. And then when I went in the office, I heard a conversation with this manager that went something like, I've been looking at the times you enter and leave the office, and I just want you to know that this is a 9 to 5 job, not a 9:05 to 4:55. And don't think that I don't know. Just because I don't walk out of my office, I can hear you locking that door. And that door needs to be open until 5 for anyone to walk in. And then he goes, yeah, but if anyone can walk in until 5 on the dot, then I won't be leaving the office because I have to help the person. So that's why I lock the door at 4:55 so I can leave at 5 on the dot. And then she's like, yeah, but it needs to be open until 5. I was like, oh my God, it's not a good culture.
Well, and I think, if you're not your true self in that interview, and there may be there's going to be turnover. You're either going to leave and have to start this process all over again, or it's not going to work out for them either. So maybe take that extra time to maybe have more time on the phone in the interviews to find that better fit.
Really make sure. Yes.
Okay. So outside of the YouTube, you work with clients personally.
That's
so let's
right.
talk about how people can work with you.
They can head over to annieyangfinancial.com. That's ANNIEYANG financial.com. I recommend people check out the 5-Day Job Search audiobook. It's available for free. So you can download that for free on annieyangfinancial.com.
Awesome. Any final tips, takeaways?
Just remember, go big or go home, right? That's really
that. You're awesome.
the end message.
Well, thank you for being here. You're truly motivating. I love the attitude. And bottom line, we got to put the work in, right?
That's right.
Numbers matter. Thanks so much, Annie, for being here today.
Amber, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Pathways. For more information about the podcast, books, articles, the blog, and so much more, please visit my website at amberstitt.com. And remember, let's take action today. Thank you for listening.